Picture this, you're shopping online. If your cart total is above $50, shipping is free. Otherwise, you pay extra. That's a simple decision, and in JavaScript, we can write that entire rule in just one line with the ternary operator. Today, I'll show you how this tiny tool makes your code short, sweet, and super clean. Hey everyone, welcome back to Elite Tech Club. If you're new here, I'm Saeed and I make programming tutorials that are beginner friendly, fun, and to the point. Before we jump in, if you haven't seen the previous video on conditional statements, I highly recommend watching that first. The ternary operator is basically a shorthand for if-else, so understanding conditionals will make this video much easier to follow. Link is in the description and also up here in the corner. Alright, so what is a ternary operator? In JavaScript, it's a fancy way of writing an if-else statement in just one line. It's usually used when you want to assign a value to a variable based on a condition. The syntax looks like this. The ternary operator is the only JavaScript operator that takes three operands: a condition followed by a question mark, then an expression to execute if the condition is truthy, followed by a colon, and finally the expression to execute if the condition is falsy. Coming back to our shopping cart example, so here we store the total amount in a variable, for example, cart total. For now it's 60. Then we have another variable, final price, and we know that for the amounts above 50 we have free shipping, otherwise we have to pay an extra amount, for example $5. So here this is our condition: cart total is above $50, then the question mark. If it's truthy, the final price is equal to cart total. Otherwise, if it's less than $50, we need to add $5 to the cart total. So this is the calculation for final price. And finally, we can also log this value in the console, console.log, and then final price. I'll save it, and here we run our app here, and let me also refresh that. Here you see that the final price is 60. Why? Because it's above 50, so this condition is true and this value will be stored in the final price. If I set cart total to 30 and run again, you see that now we have 35 because this condition is now false, and then cart total plus 5 will be 35, which is logged in the console. Another example, this time with numbers. I'll comment out the previous lines, and here we want to check if a number is even or odd. So we need two variables. First, the number itself, 7, for example, and also another variable called result. And I would like to first use the normal if-else statement, and then we change it to the ternary operator. So if, and in order to check the remainder of a division, we use the modulo operator. If the remainder of the division is 0, then the result will be even. It's an even number. Otherwise, the result will be set to odd. And finally, we log the result in the console. I'll save it, and you see that odd is logged in the console, 7 is an odd number. And now if I change it to 8 and then save the file again, see that it changed to even. And if you want to change the entire thing and use the ternary operator, I'll comment out these lines. So we have the condition here, number, then modulo 2 equals 0. This is the condition. Then we have a question mark. If this condition is true, we want to store even in the result variable. Otherwise, here we use the colon to store odd. I'll save it. We still get the same result. If I change 8 to 11, for example, and then save it, you see that it's still working. Here's where it gets even cooler. The ternary operator works perfectly with truthy and falsy values, and you can even combine conditions using the logical operators. Here, we'll use truthy and falsy values. Imagine that we want to display the username. So if it exists, we display that. Otherwise, we show guest, for example. So let username and then we have another variable, display name. Here we check if username is truthy. In other words, if it's not an empty string, then display name would be username. Otherwise, it defaults to guest. And finally, console.log display name. Here, I'll save it, and you see that Emma is logged in the console because it's truthy. Therefore, username will be stored here in this variable. But if I remove it and then assign username to an empty string, then you see that guest will be logged in the console because here username is falsy. Now be careful. Ternary operators are awesome for short conditions, but if you try to cram too much inside, your code becomes hard to read. For example, sure, this works, but it's messy. Imagine coming back in 6 months to read this. In cases like this, it's better to use regular if-else statements for clarity. Rule of thumb: use ternary for simple conditions, if-else for complex ones. So that's the ternary operator. It's like the mini version of an if-else statement. Super handy for short decisions in your code. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who's learning JavaScript. And remember, if you haven't checked out the conditional statements video, go watch that now, because these two lessons go hand in hand. In the next video, we're going to dive into the switch statement, so stay tuned. Until then, happy coding!